So, welcome to session 2. And in this session, we're going to be looking at the challenges that we face in becoming positive and the way that we can begin to overcome obstacles. So, what I'd like to do is just really think about or start with a little relaxation exercise and a reflection that's going to be part of this session. And so, just sit comfortably. And if you're holding anything, you might want to put your books and pens down if you have one, and I would advise you to find something that you can take some notes on in a little while. And so just sit comfortably, and we're really just checking in with our physical bodies, just checking that our feet are relaxed, our legs are relaxed, the muscles in our stomach are relaxed, and then just relaxing into the chair if I'm sitting on one. Relaxing the arms, the legs, and just really checking in and making sure that there's no tension in the body. Just really present and really relaxed. And now just really tuning in to your breathing and just making sure that your breaths are very even as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And so a chance to be focused and present. And in this present space, I'd like you just to reflect on 3 questions. And the first is, what are the benefits of positive thinking on our minds? That's the first one. Second, the benefits on our body. And the third is the benefits on our relationships. And so I'm going to just pause here to give you some time to get your device or get some paper and pen just to jot down a few ideas. And again, don't intellectualize it, because we know the answers to this, I think. Whatever comes to your mind, just to write that down. Just 1 or 2 examples. So if you need longer, you may want to pause the video and then carry on when you've done the reflective exercise. But I know that some people have often responded to things like, well, my stress is reduced when I've done something like positive thinking, and that has had an impact on my physical health with, less high blood pressure, the ulcers are reducing. But in terms of relationships, it really is about finding harmony and really being able to accept the difficulties that might come up in our relationships. And so the impact of positive thinking is not just on one aspect of our life, I think. It's really on all aspects of our life. And I think if we asked, 500 people? If I just ask you right now, what is the main thing that you're looking for in your life? And if we were to ask 500 people at a train station, for example, what do you really want for your life? And they may say money, I want success, promotion, all of those things. And some would say, of course, peace and happiness. But even those who said, I want money and I want success, if you ask them, well, why do you want those things? Why money? Why that? If it was something physical, you'd find that they'd say, because I want to be peaceful, I want to be happy. And so I really think that we're all looking for the same thing, all of us. We just look for that in different ways. We want to be happy. We want to be stable and peaceful. But somewhere along the line, we're not able to find that. And so the question then arises then is, what are the blocks really? What is really blocking our positivity? And I think if we go back to this whole idea that people really want to experience those qualities of peace and happiness, I think the reason for that is because that's who we are. And that's why we desire it so much. And so our innate qualities that every single one of us have, even if they're buried way down deep, are 5: peace, love, joy, strength, and wisdom. And every single person, even if you can't see them, has those qualities. And I think what happens is that they tend to get triggered by external things. So it might be that a good friend of mine brings out my happiness. It might be that when I'm by the beach, I feel really, really calm. And so that kind of proves that all of these qualities are already there, but we're waiting for something external to bring them out. And so these are just 5 main qualities, but each one has their own expression. And so if you think about peace, what kind of other qualities do we experience when we experience peace? What are the expression? And if you notice in front of you, there's a space for you to answer that question. And so for love, for joy, for strength and wisdom, how do we express that? And I'll give you an example. For example, for peace, for me, one of the expressions would be patience. And so just take a moment now just to think about maybe 2 expressions for each of those qualities that you've seen or that you've expressed yourself. And again, don't think too much about it. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. If you hear peace, what's the expression? Joy, what's the expression? So I'll just pause here for a moment to give you time just to reflect on that. Once again, if you need more time, please pause and then pick up the video where you left off. And so, as you can see in front of you, there are a few examples of the expressions for each quality. You may have written some of those down, but just think that if I just really focus on one quality like peace, the effect of that is the expression of serenity, calmness, gentleness, patience, just by focusing on one aspect. And it might be that I do that by saying, I am peace. I stop throughout the day and I just pause and I remind myself that this is a quality that I have. And then there's a whole treasure store that really opens up. Same for love, compassion, care, kindness, empathy, generosity, joy, lightness, humor, laughter, enthusiasm, and happiness. And so often it's something that triggers that for us, but it's also possible to find that happiness inside as well. And we'll be looking at that a little bit later. Strength, courage, tolerance, determination, perseverance, and stability. And this wisdom, this inner knowing, it's not intelligence, it's this ability to just know what is right for you and what is right for another. And of course, the expression of that is understanding, insight, clarity, discernment, and willpower. What's happened, unfortunately, in our society is that we've kind of compromised, or we've had a very different understanding of some of those qualities, actually. So, for example, for joy or even happiness, we tend to think of that as stimulation. So I might say, oh, I've just seen a really good movie and I feel it was really, really good and I'm really happy. And I'm not saying not to see movies, not at all. But notice how that's not going to be sustainable, because I enjoyed it, great, it was fantastic. But then I leave that film, something else happens, and I start reacting in a completely different way. And so often we think happiness is stimulation. Often we think it's excitement. And of course, it's a temporary form of joy. What we're really trying to look at here is how we can begin to sustain that, even when we're not doing the things that we enjoy. Often it can be seen as relief, where I was worried about something, I thought somebody was in danger, and there's this kind of nervous laugh as I'm grateful that it didn't happen. And we tend to confuse happiness with these things, and it's happiness on one level. But to really think about, can I really create a state of mind that is joyful? And what I'm saying is, it's possible. And of course, it requires some effort. But the other thing is love. And love we've often confused with dependency or attachment or desire. And people often say, well, what's the matter with attachment? These are my kids. This is my partner. Of course I have to be attached. But you see, love and attachment are 2 different things. Because when I'm attached, there's some kind of expectation. And when there's an expectation, there's definitely going to be disappointment, because people can't always fulfill my expectations, and neither can I fulfill theirs. But when there's love from the inside, pure love, then no matter what's going on, my feeling of love for whoever it is doesn't change. And you might be saying, that's not realistic. And that's a kind of a realist, that perhaps that's a comment that I can take on board. But when you think about it, that's a quality that we enjoy feeling. And I think we can't really enjoy feeling something unless we've had the experience of having felt that for long periods of time, somewhere in our story, somewhere in our life. And so what I really feel is that when I did the positive thinking course personally, I had to look at my own beliefs and perceptions about some of these words, what I felt love was, what I felt happiness was. And I remember when I did the positive thinking course many years ago, I realized that I might have said this already, I spent most of my life, I think I was 24 at the time, looking outside for happiness. And it was like a revelation when I realized that's already inside of me, and I just have to tap into it. And so I think this is something we can reflect on in our own time, and maybe take just one of those qualities and then unpack them for yourselves. And so, yes, the desired state is to be happy and joyful, but in reality, we know there are many challenges every single day, right? Maybe more than one in a day. And given the time that we're going through, those challenges seem to be increasing. And so the question is, what is the main obstacle in trying to sustain this positive mind that we all want to cultivate? And really, it's down to three influences that we find ourselves influenced by. And the first one is circumstances. And just think about today. What was one circumstance that happened to you that just robbed your peace of mind? You know, you found you were having so many waste thoughts, you got annoyed. What was that situation? And there are many. Sometimes it can just be the weather. You know, somebody says, oh, it's raining, I feel so miserable, I wanted to go out today, and now it's raining. Some people look back to their childhood and say, well, I didn't have a good education, and that's why I'm in this position today. I can't even have a good career because of that. Other people say, I never have time for myself, that's why I'm always unhappy. And so always looking for something external to explain their own unhappiness. And of course, I'm not saying that we're not going to be influenced, we will be, but I think it's good to remember that we have the capacity, we do, even if we don't feel it, to begin to create a state of mind that's not dependent on what's happening outside, because those things we can't control. It will rain, it will pour, it will thunder. What can we do about it? But what we can begin to control is how we respond to those things, because they're outside of our control. Another kind of influence is of possessions. And so again, my happiness is dependent on what I own. And so I might say something like, oh, so-and-so has got a new kitchen and I want one too. And I start to get myself into comparisons. And now my happiness is dependent on whether I have what somebody else has. And of course, if I have that level of kind of comparisons going on, then it's very hard to be happy. Sometimes it's just about what I'm going to wear. And something as simple, it's not always simple, I know, of just getting dressed becomes like a nightmare. You can't find the shoes. Suddenly the dress you wore last time or the trousers you wore last time suddenly looks different or not as good. And it's amazing how many waste thoughts we can create on these kind of areas. Ever got upset when somebody's moved something that you keep in the same position? I know I've done that. You know, where certain things are set in its place, and for some reason it's not where you expect it to be. And it's amazing how you can lose your peace of mind over that. You know, I remember, I was teaching for many years, and And we all used to have, like, in one school anyway, we had like a chair where we'd all have our own chair, we'd all have our own mug, not that it belonged to us. And I remember myself thinking, looking for my mug and not finding it in its space, and getting a bit irritated when I saw another teacher using it. It is not my mug. But I watched how, even for 5 or 10 seconds, I was irritated. Where's my mug? Who's sitting in my chair? And imagine how we can lose our minds, and how I definitely lost my mind over these things. Okay, it wasn't for the whole day, but still, there was that feeling of irritation and agitation. And so possessions. And so it's a good thing to check. One story I remember, when I was living abroad, and I had this potato peeler. It's really quite pathetic, but I'm going to share it. And in this country, it was, where was I was living in South Africa, and you couldn't get this kind of type of potato peeler. It was like German, and it was really, really, it was really good at peeling anything, vegetables. And this, I couldn't find it. I was like, and I went to the dustbin like 5 times. Whole day, literally whole day, it was on my mind, and I just couldn't find it. And that evening, I think I was teaching maybe positive thinking. I shared it with the students there, and they just started laughing. And then I remember, before going to bed that day, I just sat quietly, and I just remembered what happened. And what happened, I was trying to save water because there was a drought there, and I had left that potato peeler. It sounds like a really silly story, but I'd left that potato peeler in the bucket where the water was, and I threw it in the garden because I didn't want to waste the water. And I'd thrown that potato peeler in the garden, and I sat there in my meditation, and I literally knew where it was. And I thought, okay, I'll just wake up tomorrow morning and I'll just get it. And fair enough, woke up the next morning, went exactly to where it was, and it was there. But I'd spent the whole day literally thinking about it, potato peeler. And so it's amazing how possessions can really have an impact. And it wasn't so much the potato peeler, but it was the fact that it made my life easier, and I was able to finish things quickly. And so it's interesting to look at your relationship with possessions. So you might want to do that. And then the other thing, which I think is a big one for all of us, is the influence of people. And again, I think most of our time is spent thinking about other people, looking at other people. And it's more than 70%. Just check in one day, how much time do we think about other people? And it's not always positive, it's often critical. Comparing ourselves, complaining about other people, criticizing them. And again, all of our energy is going in that. So just imagine if we didn't focus all of our energy on what other people were doing in a critical way. And let's say it was 70%. I'm just picking that number out of the sky. Just think if we turn that 70% on ourselves, not in a selfish way, but we just began to observe what we were doing, how we were responding. I think in a very short space of time, we could begin to make the changes that we've always wanted to make. And so I think the main thing in all of these influences is that we're looking for those qualities that you just looked at outside of ourselves. We're wanting to feel peaceful through objects, perhaps. We're expecting a situation to make us feel peaceful, people. And I think for me, that's the bottom line. We're looking outside for something that exists inside of us. And there's a very nice story about a Norwegian sea captain, I think back in the 80s. And there was a hurricane, and many ships perished. And I think his was the only ship that actually survived, wasn't shipwrecked. And what he did, he allowed the hurricane to, in a way, navigate him into the center of the storm. And in the center of the storm, he said it was completely calm, completely peaceful. He didn't resist where the hurricane was taking him. But what he did say was that at the center of that storm, it was so quiet, so still. And I really think that's a really good analogy for our lives, because around us, we are surrounded by storms, if you like, chaos. And it's only in that, finding that inner center space within ourselves, can we really find a quiet space where we really feel calmness in the storm, as this Norwegian sea captain explained. And so part of being able to overcome obstacles is being able to find this quiet space inside. And what that requires is just time, making time to sit with ourselves and go inside and find that space that we all have. We just don't make time to see it. And so what happens when you focus your thoughts on yourself? So going back to the analogy of the storm and really being at the center. So just imagine when you're at the center of yourself, what happens when you focus your thoughts on yourself? And the first thing is that you have the capacity to exercise choice, where you don't feel now that you're up against a brick wall and you're surrounded by all of these influences, but you're able to really begin to rely on your own inner resources of peace, love, and strength. And I think up until then, we felt we didn't have a choice. But if I can tap into my own feeling of strength and peace, then it gives me the ability to recognize that, yeah, actually, I don't have to be influenced by this person or that situation. There's another response. And secondly, it gives you a sense of freedom where I'm able to think, experience the things that I want to experience when I want to, and that not being determined by external factors. Sometimes I wait for myself to feel peaceful when the situation is as I want it. Well, how long will I have to wait for that? And so this sense of freedom, who doesn't want to feel this inner sense of lightness which freedom brings? And so remember one thing, that obstacles instruct, they do not obstruct. They're telling us something that we need to change within ourselves, something that we need to do differently. And so obstacles instruct, they do not obstruct. And so the SOS for today's session is, remember, stand back as just being able to stand back from your thoughts and to create an opportunity to separate yourself from the influence of your own thoughts. Once I've stood back, I can observe and just check the things that are influencing you and what this is telling you about where you are looking for your happiness, because that's all it is. It's information. It's a signpost that I'm looking for happiness outside. And once I've observed that, I can gently steer. And I observe my influences and I guide my mind gently to my inner world of qualities. And so by creating positive thoughts, I'm able to transform the impact of these limited or external influences. And so what I'd like to do is just to take you through a meditation. And this meditation is from a book called In the Stillness, and it's by Jim Ryan. And it's called The Healing Pool. And so a chance just to really find that quiet space inside. And so just sitting comfortably, I find myself by the seashore. I am far from the noise and activity of people. All around is the beauty and harmony of nature. I have left behind worry and confusion. I feel free and light and at ease with myself and with everyone around me. Everything seems good. Everything is good. The sky above is clear and blue. I walk along the soft golden sands, warm and gentle beneath my feet. All around there is a great feeling of peace as the waves silently caress the receding sands. I take the beauty of that scene and feel a sense of oneness, a feeling of love. Slowly, I walk along the sands, feeling light and good and peaceful. As the waves wash the sloping land, I come upon a large cave. Cool fragrances from its center draw me. As I look inside, I see a stairway spiraling down. Sweet scents and gentle colors pull me as I descend the stairway. The colors begin to change from green to yellow to gold. I feel light and peaceful. I arrive at a large opening, and there in front of me is a beautiful pool of blue water. This is the pool of eternal healing. This is the pool of peace. I am drawn by pure energies, and I gently slide into its still waters. I float in that stillness, in that peace. The waters of peace flow around me and over me. It is the pool of love. Love flows around me and over me. It is the pool of light. It is the pool of understanding. It is the pool of healing. I glide into the waters. I sink deep and am surrounded by pure and wonderful vibrations. I feel light. Heaviness of the past drops away as the experience of peace and light and love begin to fill me, refresh me, and heal me. I stay as long as I wish in these healing waters. And so that concludes session 2, and in session 3 we'll be looking at identity and how our concept of ourselves influences our ability to think positively.